Good morning. Good morning, Lu Wei.
On for a delay into tomorrow if you did not hear that. Washington 95 to 5. North Carolina 63 to 37. That's getting closer. Uh-oh. South Carolina 97 to 3. Georgia 70 to 30. Florida 92 to 8. Alabama 95 to 5. Thank you for the first one. I saw it, dear. I'm sorry.
Good morning, good morning. 早上好.
Minnesota 90 to 10. Wisconsin.
So, let's see. Liu Wei, Iris, good morning. Joanna, hello, good morning. What's that? 上的那边. Oh, I can't read the last person's name. 什么什么凤. Well, good morning to you either way. Good morning to you either way. So, I must say, guys, I made a horrible mistake. The last 2 days, the last two streams, I made a very, very terrible mistake. So, I thought something was weird, something was off, and it didn't occur to me until yesterday afternoon. So, as you probably already know, whenever we do our live stream, we do a live stream here on WeChat via audio, and we also do a live stream on YouTube via video. And what happened? The last 2 days, for the last 2 days, I've been streaming on the wrong channel on YouTube. Unfortunately. So, as you guys probably know, I manage multiple social media accounts. And unfortunately, for the last 2 days, I signed into the wrong one and I've been live streaming the podcast on the wrong channel on YouTube. So, today we're on the correct channel, so that's great. But yeah, yesterday, the last 2 days, it struck me so strange because I would do the live stream, and I usually don't do the live stream on YouTube on this channel like before, like years ago. And so I would start the live stream, and randomly I would get like a group of people show up, like 10 or 15 people on the stream. And I'm like, that's so strange. Maybe something changed with the algorithm. Oh, okay. And then the second day it happened again twice. I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. But actually, I was just streaming on the wrong channel. I was streaming on one of my more popular channels, and it's not the right content for that channel. That was so funny. It was so weird. So yeah, if you guys were looking for the video stream on YouTube, of the podcast, the live stream, yeah, you weren't gonna find it. You're definitely not gonna find it. Now you are, but the last 2 days you would not have found it. That's unfortunate. Oh well. So, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to have an open ended conversation about choices. So, for today, we don't have any talking points, we don't have a set topic. It's going to be choices, simply put, choices. And the reason for this is I don't know if you guys know, but today seems to be a very interesting day because today we are going to find out, well, maybe later tonight, right? We're going to find out who is going to be elected the president of the United States, the president of the US. Now, I know like for a lot of people here, maybe you might think it's not that relevant because we live in China, so whatever, it doesn't matter. But boy, oh boy, would you be wrong. It matters a lot. It matters a lot, a lot. So everybody has a choice. And in my opinion, there are several choices that you can make. In this situation, when it comes to the Americans, right? They can choose Trump, they can choose Harris. And that's basically it. Because all the other parties are too small to really have a realistic chance of winning. They can only get up to like 1% of votes, which is pretty ridiculous. And there's a third choice. There is a third choice. The third choice is that you don't choose. You don't choose, you don't vote, and you let the politics and the politicians do their thing. And you just focus on how you are going to run with the punches. So let me get back to the part of why this matters to you, right? Because at this moment, of course, most of my listeners are going to be in China, right? So, like I said, a lot of people might think, oh, well, I'm Chinese and I live in China. So whoever is voted to be president of the US doesn't matter to me. And oh boy, would you be wrong. You would be extremely wrong. So let me explain to you why. Between these two people, between Harris and Trump, I think it's so interesting. It's very, very ironic because when you go on social media in China, you'll find that a lot of Chinese people seem to really like Trump and they really support Trump. And there's a lot of content and videos that are like mocking Kamala Harris, right? I think that's so interesting. It is so, so interesting. Good morning, Fafa. Good morning, Miss Sun. Good morning, 小兔子. Yeah, hey, 早睡早起. Good morning, buddy. So, let me really tell you why. This is so strange to me because it highlights something, and it's not just about people in China, but people in the US as well. It highlights something very important, is that most people, and when I say most people, I mean like 95%, most people have no idea what these candidates represent and what they are actually running on in terms of policy. So when it comes to, for example, shooting yourself in the foot or going against your best interest, what that means is when you make choices or you support things or people that will hurt you instead of help you. So let me give you guys an example. I don't vote. I don't choose either one of them because I think they're both poor candidates. Okay? I think both candidates are problematic. Both candidates are not presenting solutions that are going to help us in reality. But when it comes to China, my friends, when it comes to China, I think it's ironic that so many people, at least on social media, so many people are very pro-Trump in China. Do you guys agree? It seems a lot of people like Trump. But you know what's one of one of his talking points? One of the main things that he's running on is when he is elected, he wants to impose a 60% tariff on all things from China. That is so weird to me. I'm like, this man, one of his main talking points is doing trade wars with China, right? One of his main points. And one of the policies that he's going to impose immediately, as soon as possible, is a 60% tariff on all things coming from China. That's crazy. I mean, First of all, that's stupid. I'm gonna be honest with you. That's just plain dumb. But it's just so bizarre to me. And look, we're not even supposed to be talking about this stuff here, honestly, but it's so strange to me that a candidate that is so anti you and your country, that so many people can like him and support him. I don't know. I just think it's so weird. You know what I'm saying? But yes, so this is what's gonna happen, guys. If Harris is elected, I'm sure there's going to be consequences to that, especially when it comes to the conflicts in terms of the Middle East and Ukraine and Russia and all that stuff. There'll be huge consequences for that. But then if Trump is elected, there's going to be direct consequences to China immediately, because that's part of his plan, right? He wants to bring manufacturing back to America, and he wants to keep Chinese goods and products out of America and all this stuff because he wants to be tough on China. That's basically what he's been running on half of the time, you know. But so many people here like him. It's so weird. I'm like, bro, that is so strange. That's like me voting for a racist. It's so weird to me. But anyway, it's not just here though. Americans do the same thing where maybe there's a particular person that they can choose and they like this person and they choose this person, but they don't know that the policies that that person has been working on go totally against their best interest. I think it's so strange. That's all. It's so strange. And it really says a lot about misinformation or lack of information that people actually receive or pursue. So this is one thing I would encourage you guys is like, if you are in support of something, doesn't matter if we're talking about a presidential candidate or a country or a policy or whatever, if you are in support of something, you should be very mindful to do some research, do some homework, and see if that person or that company or whatever, see if they actually support you back. Because if they're against you, then it doesn't make sense, you know? You're going against your own best interest. I gave this example before. That when we were talking about the luxury goods and stuff like that, and I think it was Dolce and Gabbana. Somebody updated me on this again, right? When we were in the chat. And I say, you know, it's really interesting. It's funny because the number one consumer of luxury goods right now are Chinese folks, right? The Chinese are like the number one importer of luxury goods right now, including Dolce and Gabbana, right? But meanwhile, right, the founders of Dolce and Gabbana were actually putting out really racist things against Chinese people on Twitter. That was a few years ago. And it's just like, it's so ironic because it wouldn't be a surprise. It's not that anything changed. They've always felt that way, right? They've always felt that way. And then Chinese people would still buy their goods, like this kind of stuff. So the thing is like, if you went out of your way for a few minutes and look into the background, then you will find like, hey, these people really don't like you, but you're making the money and you're supporting their business. I think we need to, all of us, everybody, right? American, Chinese, Canadian, Australian, Indian, who cares? But I think we all need to take some time and do some research behind our choices, behind the things that we support, the people we support, the companies we support, the products that we buy, things like that. It doesn't make sense for us to support things that do not want us, right? If we weren't invited to the party, we shouldn't be offering to buy snacks. You know what I'm saying? Let me catch up with the chat really quick. Political. Let's see. Liu Wei says, for a political person, you can like his personality. It shows to how you can come to like him and hope he can be elected. Yeah, that's basically it. So a lot of people, especially when it comes to Trump, a lot of people are just supporting him based on personality and how silly he is and stuff like that, but don't actually know what his actions are. And the thing is, when it comes to him, there's nothing new. Him trying to impose more tariffs, like on China, for example, that's not new. He's been doing that since he was elected 8 years ago. 8 years ago, guys. It's not new. It's not a surprise. So now, 8 years later, especially after the trade war situation, for people here to still be supporting him and to like him, I'm dumbfounded. I am so dumbfounded by this. Yeah. Well, I would say this, Liu Wei. So Liu Wei says, actually, no matter who, the direction to CN would not change. I understand that. I understand what you're saying. That no matter what, whichever person is elected, the direction that they're going to take in regards to how the relationship goes between the two countries will remain the same. Like, yes, but no. So here's the thing. When it comes to Trump, for example, when it comes to the red team, we're going to be like this, the red team. When it comes to the red team, there really is no dialogue. There is no conversation. There's no meetings. There's no discussion. There is no cooperation with China. You know what I mean? When it comes to the blue team, at least the blue team comes to the table with China and they do have those discussions. They do talk about those hard things that are difficult to manage, and there is cooperation. And like for example, the chairman went to California. What was it, last year or this year? I don't remember, but not long ago, the chairman went to California and met Biden and everything. So you know what I mean? Like, even if the relationship is not great, is not favorable, there's still two people having a seat at the table and having the discussion. And I think that that is the first step to building a positive relationship, especially between these two countries. That is the first step, and that is the most important thing. But when you are selecting a person, for example, a person from the red team, that they run on being negative and speaking badly about China, for example, like that is part of their policy, that is part of their personality. It also makes it so that there's more division between the two countries, between the people, and so on and so forth. We don't need that. We really, really don't need people who are going to be bad mouthing each other and bad mouthing countries. Like, there's nothing positive can come from that. If anything, it will make life more difficult for the normal citizens like us, right? Whether you are Chinese or American or whatever. I don't think there's anything positive or useful that will come from somebody who makes hard accusations with no evidence about a country and does not think about the consequences of how people are going to react. So, like, for example, when they were making comments about Haitians, right? About Haitians and saying they're eating your cats and your dogs and this kind of stuff. And then, oh, surprise, surprise, suddenly there's a raise in hate crimes against Asians. There's a bomb threats for schools where kids who happen to be Haitian are going to after he said these things, right? So it's definitely going to have an effect, especially on the people, you know what I mean? So I just think that we need to be more mindful and considerate about this when we're showing support for someone or a brand or whatever. It's just like, if all they do is hurt you and your people and your country or speak negatively about you, that's not helpful. It's not helpful at all. Not just for Americans, but other people around the world, maybe South Americans, maybe Europeans, or whoever. If they look at what the president of the US is saying and they take him seriously, then they're also going to have this bias against people from Asia or China or whatever. Oh no. I know, Joanna. Joanna says most Americans think the same way as you, and so do Chinese, but we do not have a choice, essentially. At least choose relatively normal or better. Oh, man. Yes, I believe this too, Joanna. I believe this. So Joanna says we believe that the blue team is going to continue the policies from Biden and there will be cruel killers. I agree with you. I don't disagree with that. I'm definitely not saying that there is a better choice. I don't think that either one is good. I think they both represent something very dangerous and very dark in the world, unfortunately. This is why I don't vote for either one. It can. It probably can. Maybe not enough, but it probably can. Because you have to also remember that there's a lot of Chinese people in America and those people also they also have a choice. They also vote. Hmm. Then the world is all wrong in terms of China. It is true, so stop telling the truth. Right, it's true. It is true. Mm. Oh, where did this ant come from? Oh my goodness. I got an ant on me. That's so creepy. Hmm. So I think, you know what's interesting? I think that before we make claims, guys, before we make claims, especially statistical claims, it is important that we look at the statistics. That's all I'm going to say. So this is very important. So, like I said, in my opinion, both ends, when we're looking at the red and we're looking at the blue, they're both bad. They're both horrible. And I think it doesn't make sense to have a choice between bad and bad. It's awful. However, that aside, when it comes to statistics, statistical claims, remember, it is important that you look up the statistics first before claiming the statistics. Otherwise, it doesn't look very good. So, if you make statistical claims, whether you're talking about education, whether you're talking about military action, wars, if you're talking about immigration, if you're talking about jobs, unemployment, if you're talking about salaries, earnings, stock markets, all that stuff, my guarantee to you is if you listen to either political candidate about these talking points, you are going to be wrong. 100% you are going to be wrong. So the best thing that you can do is go online, look for the official government websites that have the exact statistics for whatever talking point they make and actually fact check it. 9 times out of 10, when you fact check these people, they're wrong. They're not just wrong, they're lying or misrepresenting the information. So just do that. I'm not going to debate with anybody about what statistics and what you can be right or what you could be wrong about. But this is why, for me, I don't make any claims, any statistical claims that I did not research myself because I don't want to look like an ass. I have no desire to look like an idiot. So when it comes to statistical claims, I need to make sure that I look at census information, I look at the FBI or CIA websites and look at their statistical data. If it's related to employment, then you look at the Labor Bureau data. All the information is there. It is free, it is publicly available. There's no reason why we should trust politicians to give you the correct statistical data because we know that they all have a bias. They all have a reason to lie to you. They all have a reason to make you think that things are worse than they actually are or that things are better than they actually are, depending on who's in power, right? So do your best to look at the information yourself and then you can make judgments after that. I'll give you a small example just because it's a long time ago. And one of the things that a lot of people will criticize when it comes to the red team, for example, just for example, I don't care either way, is about immigration, right? It's the fact that they say, oh, people in the red team will deport millions of people, millions of immigrants, right? But they don't actually think about the consequences that come with that. I agree. Yes, this is true. However, we also forget that the person who did the most deportations, like the administration, for example, was the Obama administration. The Obama administration did the most deportations in like American history. At this point, actually, they were like the top deporters of any candidate within the last 50 years of any administration. But if you look at political talking points, they will tell you, for example, that Obama would have been very soft on immigration. He doesn't care to protect Americans and our borders and blah, blah, blah. But Obama's administration literally deported 2 or 3 times more, if not even more than that, than the Trump administration did. So on both sides, the information is incorrect because the data is there. It is publicly available. So we know for a fact that that's not how it works. So this is what I'm saying. When you're looking or when you're talking about statistical data, please make sure that you check it. Check it first. Get the official sources from publicly available government websites with the data available and look at it by yourself. Don't just say it because your favorite politician said it. Okay? I think we are much better than that. We are much, much better than that. So if you cannot trust your political candidates, which you cannot, if you think you can trust a millionaire or a billionaire to give you accurate information, then you're a fucking idiot. Sorry. I don't mean to say it so boldly, but it's true. If you think that some rich people in the government that are trying to get more power are going to be honest with you, then you're an idiot. Like, you're very gullible. Look at the information by yourself. Get the statistical data by yourself and actually find out the truth on your own. The information is publicly available. It is a bipartisan situation. When it comes to government websites and data, that stuff is bipartisan. That stuff is put up by all administrations and is managed by all administrations. Okay? So make sure before you make talking points about statistics, get the right information. You don't trust politicians to do that for you. That is a horrible idea, my friends. Anyway, so with that said, this is my perspective on how I would always handle this. Is I don't care to vote. I don't see it as being something all that impactful or useful. And why? Why comment? That's so terrible. You have this amazing choice. So you should take it. Listen, at the end of the day, regardless of which administration or which party or whatever goes in power, when the population, when 90% of the population supports something, supports a policy, for example, even if 90% of the population support it, so long as the big corporations do not support that particular policy, it doesn't go into action. It doesn't go into law. We already know this is the truth. We have the statistical data for this. It doesn't matter who the president was. It doesn't matter which party you like. It doesn't matter which speech was your favorite. No one cares. If you can get 90% of Americans to agree on one policy, it won't matter because Congress is not going to pass anything and the Senate's not going to pass anything just because 90% of Americans support it if the lobbies don't support it. That is the problem. This is the highlight. So until we get to the point where we see that the majority of people supporting a certain cause or a certain thing actually works when it comes to this whole sphere of political nonsense, then it doesn't matter. It won't work. So For my lifetime, I have never seen, and even before my lifetime, oh my God, for my lifetime and before my lifetime, I have not seen evidence that there's been any president or any candidate or any administration in blue or in red that actually has done anything to make it so that the popular policy by the people is the one that is being supported. That has not happened. The one that gets supported is always the one that is lobbied for. It's always the one that is supported by the bigger corporation. Whether we're talking about non-competes, whether we're talking about consumer protections, or we're talking about military action or war or whatever, it just does not work. And I think that the evidence is pretty clear. If you look as far back as the Vietnam War and through everything that has happened to this point, the popular opinion when it comes to the American public doesn't matter. The laws and the policies that come into effect don't matter unless there's a certain lobby that's paying for it. So this is why I don't vote. My perspective is that I need to try to predict what is the worst case scenario for any potential group that is in power, for example. And I need to make sure that whatever I do is going to be to my best interest. I don't need to convince anyone else. I don't need to convince you or a politician or whoever to do what I want them to do. I think that's nonsense. I will just go wherever the situation is favoring me. So let me give you guys an example. That's cute, Scott. Let me give you an example. If you look at a lot of the big businesses, the big corporations in California, right? Instead of fighting with the government in California, what will they do? They'll move. Simple as that. They will move. You notice that a lot of the corporations are moving to Texas. And even the corporations that were registered in Vermont, I think it was in Vermont. It's either Vermont or I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it is Vermont. Even the corporations that was registered there because they had the most favorable policies for your headquarter, your company headquarter to be there, are also moving to other states because at the moment, the policies are not very favorable. So what does this show you? Even the corporations are voting with their money. They're voting with their action in terms of what policy they support. Sure, they pay for the lobby, and that's okay. That's not a problem because lobbying and bribing is legal in that system. But besides that, you can make a choice to establish business where you see fit, what is most favorable to you. When Amazon was trying to set up a new warehouse and other like headquarters and things like that, not the top headquarters, but like management offices, etc., there were states competing, trying to get Amazon to set up in their state. They're trying to give them either free land for them to set up or trying to give them low or no taxes for like the first X number of years, so on and so forth. And these incentives are what's supposed to bring companies to that particular state, right? So at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, if we cut the bullshit, as we say, if we cut the nonsense, the reality is that the only way that you can really vote is by using your money. That's how you vote. So if you see that there are certain things in a certain state or certain policies that you don't like, then the best thing that you can do is get out of there or take your business out of there, so on and so forth. It's as simple as that. And only then, when enough people do this, is some sort of action actually taken. Because at that point, then it starts hurting the pockets of the government and the governors or the state administration, whatever it is. So once they actually have deficit problems and they have to keep borrowing money from like Central and all that stuff, then we start seeing, oh, now some changes are being implemented. So that's how I vote, ladies and gentlemen. I vote with my money. I will support any country or any state or whatever that has the most favorable conditions for me because I'm selfish. That's how I am. And even for me, like living in China, it's the same thing. If China has the most favorable conditions and I can set up a business here, and that is a favorable condition for me, this is where I'm going to set up my business. So think about what is it? I want to say like between the 1960s and the 1980s, even the 1990s, this continued for a long time. How many American companies and American manufacturers, how many of them closed shop and then sent all their manufacturing to China? Come on now. Come on now. Why would they do that? Right? Why would they do that? If all they have to do is vote and get the country or the state to give a favorable policy, then why the hell would they spend millions of dollars moving all of their manufacturing to their foreign country? It is because there is an incentives. There are incentives. The conditions are favorable for them to be able to make more money. It's simple as that. So as far as I'm concerned, dude, your regular citizen, regular people, we need to start behaving more like businesses. We need to start behaving more like corporations in the sense that if you live in a place where the conditions are not favorable to you, there's no incentive for you to live there. There's no incentive for you to work there or pay taxes there, then leave. That is the best thing you can do. Leave. Don't support them. And then support the state or the town or the system that is actually doing what you need them to do, that is actually supporting you. Oh no, Space Guru, don't say that. Oh man. So Space Guru said, so you're so you're basically talking about common sense. Yo, Space Guru, listen, buddy. In order for that to be common sense, the sense of doing it must be common. Most people don't have this sense, so I don't think it's common. So yeah, I definitely don't think it's common. Yeah, that's stupid. So I'll give you guys another example. So I was looking at what are some of the incentive systems in the US to live in certain neighborhoods, in certain towns, if you work remote, right? So I will give you guys this example. For what I do, I can work anywhere. I can work anywhere in the world because I work remote. For the most part, I work remote. I can have to be in the office from time to time, sure, that's fine. But for the most part, I can work remote. So that means I can do what I do from anywhere in the world. So if I choose, I can choose to live in the US, I can choose to live in China, in Thailand, whatever. So because of this, I was looking at some information about, okay, where do we have incentives in the US for people who work remote? And lo and behold, I found some. Of course I found some. So if you go online and you do some research, you will find there are several states and towns that have incentive programs for digital nomads, for remote workers, which means that if you work for a company that allows you to run your business or operate remotely, and you live in that state or you live in that county, not only do you get tax benefits, but they will pay you. They will pay you to move to that town. So I found an incentive program that they pay like $5,000 to $6,000. If I choose to move to that town, they will pay me to move to that town. I think it sounds ridiculous, but it makes sense. It does make sense because if you get a certain number of people within a certain county to live there, work there, deal with goods and services, provide tax revenue, so on and so forth, it helps that neighborhood or that town, that county grow or maintain itself. Another incentive, right, that I found when I was also doing this homework, there are some neighborhoods, some towns where they will pay you to move there if you are a teacher. So if you have a background in education or you have experience teaching, it doesn't really matter what it is. The point is that you were in education and you have at least 2 years to 5 years of experience, right? They will pay you to move to that town. They will help you get an agent to find you a place to live, first of all. And they will also have your job lined up for you, and they will pay you in cash at least $5,000 to move to that neighborhood. Why would they do that? Because that neighborhood obviously must have a shortage of teachers, or that town or that county has a shortage of educators. So, how can you attract more teachers to come live in your town? You must provide some incentives. Either you're going to provide tax breaks, or you're going to pay them in cash to move there, or maybe even you provide them with free housing, because the housing and the rent there is not going to be very expensive if it's not a very popular town, right? And also, by the way, this doesn't mean that the town is dangerous or anything like that. It just means that it's very low traffic. Simple as that. They just don't have a lot of certain professionals. And the same thing, if you are a medical professional, if you are a nurse, or if you are an MD, whatever, there are also a lot of places in the US, a lot of towns where they will pay you to move there because they don't have enough nurses, they don't have enough doctors, they don't have enough teachers, right? This is what it is. It's not very different with China either. So if you do some homework, right? If you do some homework, guys, you will find in China, there's going to be certain districts that do not follow the same national policy when it comes to work permits and when it comes to visas. So for example, the national policy right now is that for example, if you're teaching English, if you are an English teacher, then the basic requirement is that you have at least a bachelor's degree, you have at least 2 years experience, and you are a native speaker. So the country passport that you are holding is that of a English as a national language or main language country. So US, Australia, Canada, whatever. However, there are still many districts in China and many counties in China that you can work there legally, you can be hired there legally as an English teacher, even though you don't come from a native English speaking country. You can do that legally. That is part of the incentive. Why? Because they don't have enough educators that have experience or background with English specifically. That's why they would do that. So early on, you can see how the policies are going to change and gravitate towards what a certain country or district or county needs. And the reality is that this is the best way to vote. This is 100% the best way to vote. Use those policies that work in your favor, depending on what your background is, your profession, what incentives you think are preferable, and live in those areas and those neighborhoods and pay taxes for those counties because they are actually going to represent your best interest, not some multimillionaire, billionaire politicians that we will never see or talk to in our lives that are making decisions that are going to trickle down and affect us, sure, but the most direct impact is quite literally the town that you are living in. All right, let me catch up with the chat, folks. I got to catch up. I think Space Guru was saying some funny stuff. Well, yeah, what is it? Barbar Bear says, it's difficult to leave for there's still family and parents. I get that. I understand that. But you know what? You have a choice. You can stay in a place that does not want you or does not favor you in any way and struggle with that, like a lot of New Yorkers do, for example. Or you can go to another place where you are seen as an asset or someone of value, where you can change your life and you can better support your family. The choice is yours. I understand, though. I definitely get where you're coming from. Something educated population base. Okay, well, I'll let somebody else answer this in the chat. So CCC is asking, why don't you show your face now during a live stream? Yeah, you can guess. Oh, snap. What? Okay, Space Guru. Most people's assets are in their home country. In order to protect their assets, they feign patriotism. That's interesting. I'm not sure if that applies to what I was talking about, but I get it. That's okay. Canary, don't lie to them. The only face I'm showing is the one in the picture. Choice polling predictions or reality like hers because she is a brainy woman. Ah, it's sad. It's very depressing, I gotta tell you. It's very depressing to not have at least one decent, viable choice. But, like you guys said, there's nothing you can do about it. The only thing we can do is make more selfish choices that affect us more directly and leave the politicians alone to let them kill each other. I don't care. No, 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 no. No fun. Jordania. Oh my goodness, Jordania. Stop it. Stop it, girl. That's funny. Anywho, but that is the basic situation, guys. It's unfortunate, right? But there isn't a decent choice. There really, really isn't. On the one hand, you have a person who is very divisive, understatement of the century, fear mongering Capitan. On the other hand, you have a warmongering Capitan that just behaves as if everything is peachy. It's just there's no winning. There really is no winning. This is why I think like these national elections are not not really useful. I think in hindsight, like hindsight is 2020, but it's like this wasn't even probably worth discussing. But anyway, I digress. Let it be. Let it be what it is. No matter what happens, we need to make sure that we take steps to protect whatever our best interest is. That's what's going on. So, if you are in China, for example, and you are in the trade business or you are in manufacturing or something like this, and Trump gets elected, for example, then you need to be very, very mindful of what comes next, especially if you have American clients, right? What's going to come next is a continuation of what happened at the very beginning with increasing tariffs, increasing restrictions and goods about when it comes to goods from China entering the US, this kind of stuff. So the best thing that you can do is make sure that you take steps to safeguard your livelihood, your income, and your business. There are many ways that you can do it. I'm not the professional to discuss that here, right? But there are many ways you can do it. Make sure you look into it. If, for example, the blue team ends up winning, then what's going to happen next is going to be probably more leaning and pressing into the conflicts, especially those related to like the Middle East and especially those related to Ukraine and Russia, etc. Right? So it's going to be a little bit less to do with China, but still be mindful and be wary. You might have like a grace period where you won't get pressured with tariffs as quickly as you would have with the red team, but it can still happen. So you just have to be able to plan for both situations. It will affect you, right? Because if you have more tariffs, especially significant ones, then that means that there's going to be a lot more Chinese companies that were doing business with American consumers or clients that may have to do layoffs or may have to relocate their factories or may have to change their offices and so on and so forth. So you can potentially lose your job. People in your family can lose their jobs and their income and so on and so forth. We have to be wary about this. We have to be mindful about this. Like just because you don't live in the US and you're not a US citizen, you don't vote, that doesn't mean that this election is not going to affect you. It can affect you. So just be very mindful of that and consider like, what are some options that I have if the worst comes to worse? That's all there is to it. Because you know me, guys. I'm all about personal development. Personal development, business consulting, taking care of yourself first before anything else, and not just passing a blind eye to something because you think someone says funny things. The world is big. We need to look. Yeah, that's true. See you later, Jordania. Yeah, I see that, Canary. Right, exactly. The challenges are going to be totally different. On both ends, you are going to have challenges, and you just need to be mindful of that and consider what those challenges are going to be and how they might affect you directly. You might think that they won't, but they will. These things always trickle down and affect the normal people. It's going to affect us sooner or later. So the best thing that we can do is prepare for that, right? So at this time, if worse comes to worse, you should start preparing and leaning to focusing on either domestic companies or domestic clients, or you're focusing on clients from, like, what a lot of companies are doing is focusing on clients in the Middle East, like in Dubai or Qatar, so on and so forth. You might need to reconsider your trajectory in terms of which countries have favorable policies towards your industry and your business and your country, so that you can safeguard your livelihood. You can safeguard your job, your money, so you can take care of your family. At the end of the day, none of these politicians care about you directly, and they don't care about your families. They don't care about the consequences that you are going to deal with directly. So you have to do this for yourself. You have to be mindful of these kind of things yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me this morning. It is going to be 9 a.m. soon. If you enjoyed the stream, please make sure to hit that follow button. 关注一下，谢谢你. We will be back tomorrow. We will probably just lightly touch on this topic just to go over what the results were. But we won't be covering much of it. I tell you, it is what it is. We just have to consider whether it's going to be our best course of action, depending on who wins, right? If you want to be able to message me and give me suggestions for topics in the future, or if you have some questions regarding personal development or business consulting, you can add my WeChat directly. My username is the same as my channel, Komitlive, Komitlive. So if you search for me on WeChat, my user ID is the same. You can find me, you can add me. I answer all of my messages, unless you are really, really redundant. I answer all of my messages, so don't be shy. And let's see. Hopefully things go well. Hopefully things go in the right direction. But if they don't, we need to be prepared. And that's what we're probably going to focus on tomorrow, how to actually prepare, how to get the best out of any situation. So with that said, thanks again for being here. Enjoy your Thursday. Tomorrow is Friday already. We're almost done with the week. Stay beautiful, stay amazing, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.